And now, your midweek motivation with
Diana.
and Amanda. DNA.
That's us.
We're coining it. As if DNA is not already a thing, we're making it ours.
It's our thing. Yes, we're appropriating it.
That's right. Welcome,
right.
friend. How are you?
I'm so good. How
Yeah.
are you?
I didn't sleep well last night, but I'm okay.
Yeah, well,
Hence
you
the
know.
large coffee in front of me.
Yes.
It's necessary. Also, it warms my hands in this icebox of a recording room. But it
Yes.
looks cool.
Yeah. It also feels cool.
It feels very cool.
Yes.
Do you feel cool?
I do, because I have the headphones on and we've got the microphone, and then Grace helped me with my angles.
Yeah.
It's the
I was
youth.
going to say, they're cool angles you got
The
going on
youth
there.
and
I
their
love it.
angles.
Yes, they're good at the angles. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about social annotation, which is a fancy jargon way of saying, like, let's all get together and make some comments, questions, thoughts, links around a piece of text that we are all reading together. So, in other words,
Yeah, this has been such a conversation that I'm having with faculty members all over campus right now. Perusall, which is one of the tools you can use for social annotation, it's been around, but I feel like it's really surfacing right now. And so I've had a lot of emails ask me about the tool. How do we use the tool? Do we have the tool at the university? And so basically this tool, you upload your text, so textbook, PDFs, videos, images, anything that's you would want to have your students reading or looking at. They also have a really big library on Perusall that you can upload into your what they call assignments. But the library has textbooks, it has novels, it has a lot of published articles on different subject areas. And so you create an assignment for your class where you basically take that text that you want them to all read and you assign it to them, and then everyone gets their own copy that they can make notes on individually, but then there's a group copy where everybody's annotating on the same. And I'm a former English teacher nerd, so I love annotating a text so much. Like, I want to highlight it, I want to scribble on it, I want to write in the margins. And that's what these tools do, except you're doing it socially as a group, which allows them to make connections and ask questions and also validate. It's really embarrassing when you're like, oh man, I don't know this word, and you have to look it up. And you don't really want to let other people know that. But it actually is encouraged that you ask questions and you mark where you don't know terms. Because not only is that comforting for all the other students that, okay, I also didn't know that word, right? And builds a little bit of that sense of belonging. But also it lets the professor know, okay, people are highlighting these terms. Maybe I need to start pre-teaching some of this before we even get into the text, because these are words that keep coming up that they're struggling with or having to look up.
Or it might be a good cue for you as an instructor when you see that happening to jump in with one of those quick informal videos that we talked about in our previous episode to say, hey, I noticed that there's a lot of attention, confusion, discussion around this one particular point, so I wanted to jump in and provide some clarification. Or, if you're using sort of a flipped teaching model and you've had students working on this annotated text outside of class, then the next time that you meet together synchronously, that could be a point of discussion or something that you lead with. And that brings me to the thing that you mentioned about Perusall, the heat maps.
Yes.
So we need a sizzle sound. Yeah,
Do we have a sizzle sound?
Do we have a sizzle?
Do we have a sizzle? No.
Nope.
That's not a sizzle.
Okay.
We're gonna work on our sound effects, but we will get a sizzle.
In any event, heat maps, go.
Heat maps. Right, so, okay, you are in this tool called Perusall and you assign a text and students are highlighting, they're underlining, they're typing out their questions in the margins, and again, everyone can see what everyone's doing. And you can also, they have this feature, it's like starring, and so if you really like a comment or a question, or you had that same one, instead of just repeating yourself and putting it on there as well, you can just star it. So then the professor sees this has been starred 5 times. This is something that people are really interested in or all had the same questions or ideas. Again, and just before I go into heat maps, to give people an idea who haven't heard of this before, not only are they typing in the margins different questions they have and when they're doing their highlighting and underlining of the text, but you can also share a picture or a website, so you can share out a link, a video. So if you're, let's say, reading a text and you're like, oh my gosh, I just saw a video on YouTube about this same thing, you can share that video on YouTube and it'll go in the margins as well. So not only are they annotating a text, but they're making connections to the real world, to other texts, to maybe other classes that they've talked about the same topic. They saw something on Twitter. You can embed a Twitter feed in there as well. So like people are reading the tweets.
The
tweets? Tweets.
Tweet.
Again, where are
Okay.
young people? Grace, tweets? The tweets? Anyways,
tweets.
they're tweeting, and it
Yeah.
can be in there. And then when the professor goes in to check to see, how the annotating is going, it actually gives you a little breakdown analysis of the text, and it'll show them things like where people have spent the most time, what questions are coming up, how long most students are spending reading the text, so you know how long they've actually been in reading the text, which is great because the next time you assign that text, you can actually give people a heads up. Hey, these are the texts you have to read for this week. Each one should take you 10 minutes or 25 minutes because they know that. They have the data now to tell them that. But the heat map is helpful because it'll show the professor where students are really gravitating and spending a lot of time or having a lot of conversation. So if there's one particular page of a text where students are, not only are they annotating, but the comments, questions, and collaboration that's happening on like a sidebar conversation, it kind of gives those heat maps of which pages that's happening on. So then the professor knows like, clearly this is a hot topic everyone wants to talk about. So now when we go back into class, we're going to have a really great conversation because clearly this is either they are not understanding it and asking a lot of questions, or they're really interested in it and they really want to talk about this more. And then you're having those more in-depth conversations once you get to the classroom.
Yes, I love that. One idea that we talked about for professors who are listening to this who are interested in using Perusall or maybe have used it a little bit but not in depth is to be intentional about introducing to your students the ways that you want them to use the tool before you just send them off to play around. So introduce them maybe with a class activity to all the different tools that are in Perusall. Maybe work on an annotation like during a class session so that you can model for them how to comment, add hashtags. They can do an @ reply that's a specific response to someone else's comment so that it's not just going into like a general, long chat feed. Show them how they can link or access like what norms you want them to use for when they're bringing in outside resources, and then be sure that they know that they have that option with this specific tool to keep a personal copy. So if there are things that they would put, margin notes that they would put that aren't necessarily part of that like social stream that they want to remember for themselves, then they can keep that personal copy. But we would recommend doing this together as a group to work out some of those ideas before you send them off on their own with this tool.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's one more thing that we wanted to share.
One more. You want to talk about PDFs, don't you?
I do want to talk about PDFs and accessibility.
Well, it's important. Talk about it.
Let's call my nickname can be Accessibility Annie. No?
It doesn't come off the tongue very well.
Okay, we'll workshop that.
Can you wrap it up?
Okay, so of course we want to make sure we're using accessible PDFs. If that sounds like Greek to you, the Ally tool that's built into Blackboard will give you a heads up if something you've uploaded is not accessible.
Yeah, that's a great tool to use. The idea of social annotation doesn't have to involve Perusall or any of the tools. It really could be just a Google Doc that you're adding comments to socially as a group. I used to, when I was in classroom, they did it on paper. They were annotating a document together right in front of each other and then passing it around and each taking turns making notes on it. So it can be something like very low tech. It's more the idea and the strategy of social annotation that I want to make sure people really understand and can start to play around with and think of how to use it. So you could go very low tech on this all the way up to using apps like Perusall.
That's a great point.
Yeah, just be social and annotate. Cheers.